Hey there! Welcome to a deep dive into the world of Polycab.
Polycab.
Yeah, they're a big deal in India for wires and cables, but they're also really making a name for themselves in fast-growing electrical goods.
FMG. Yeah.
Exactly, FM Ed. And we've got a ton of stuff to go through today.
Oh, yeah.
A company presentation, financial statements, and even some responses to interview questions we sent over.
Sounds comprehensive.
It is. We're going to get a real 360 view of Polycab, where they've been and where they're headed. But the big question we're going to try to answer today is this. Can Polycab actually hit those ambitious growth targets they've set, especially with all the uncertainty in the global market right now?
It's a good question.
It is. What I find interesting is that Polycab isn't some old, established company.
Right.
I mean, they were founded in 1996.
Oh, pretty young.
Yeah, relatively young. But they've already made some pretty significant moves. For example, they started with a strong focus on manufacturing.
Back in 96.
Yeah, they set up their first manufacturing facility in Daman for power cables and house wires, even optical fiber cables.
Wow.
I know, right? But then in 2009, they got this huge investment from the International Finance Corporation, which is part of the World Bank Group.
Really?
Yeah, and that really helped them expand even more.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does. That move shows they think strategically. They're not just thinking about growing on their own. They're using partnerships and investments to get bigger faster.
Oh.
Totally. And it definitely helped them branch out into the FMG market.
So like consumer electrical goods, right?
Exactly. They started with ceiling fans back in 2011, then added LED lighting just a few years later.
I see. And then by 2019?
By 2019, they were ready to go public. They listed on both the Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange.
That's a big deal.
Huge. And that IPO, by the way, was massively oversubscribed, which really shows how much investors believed in them. But Polycab didn't just stop there. They've launched some pretty innovative initiatives.
Like
Project Udian, which is their big plan to boost their presence in export markets.
I see.
And they've also been working on their brand, how people see them.
They refreshed their image.
Exactly. They came up with this new tagline, Ideas Connected. It's not just about making stuff anymore, it's about providing solutions.
That's clever.
And they put their money where their mouth is. They started the Polycab Expert Program, a loyalty program for electricians and contractors.
So they're getting people on board at the ground level.
Exactly. It's a great way to build relationships and make sure people stay loyal to the brand. Polycab isn't just reacting to what's happening in the market, they're shaping it. But let's zoom out for a minute and look at the big picture. India's economy.
That's the context for all of this.
Right. India is on its way to becoming the world's third largest economy. Their GDP is expected to be over $5 trillion by 2028.
5 trillion.
Huge, right. What does that mean for Polycab?
Well, they're basically riding a wave of growth. They're predicting the Indian cable and wire industry will grow at 1.5 to 2 times the rate of the GDP.
So what does that look like in real terms?
Think of it this way. For every 10% increase in India's GDP, the cable and wire industry could see growth of 15% to 20%.
Okay, that's significant.
It is.
So what are the main things driving this huge increase in demand?
Well, the Indian government is putting tons of money into infrastructure.
Oh, of course.
Like, think of all the cables and wires you need for big projects, roads, airports, all of that.
Makes sense.
And then there's the whole energy transition. India is going big on renewable energy. Their goal is for 50% of their energy to come from non-fossil fuel sources by 2030.
So solar farms, wind farms, things like that?
Right, and all those things need specialized cables. Then you've got a real estate boom and the rise of new industries like data centers and electric vehicles.
So many opportunities.
Tons.
It's like the perfect scenario for a company like Polycab. Now let's zero in on their position in the cable market.
Market leaders, right?
Yep, they're the top dog in India for wires and cables, and their financials show it. Over the last 5 years, they've had an 18% compound annual growth rate, that's AEGR, in revenue.
Impressive.
Super impressive, especially in such a competitive market like India.
That's not just growth, it's profitable growth too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Their EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, shows an even better growth of 21%.
Wow.
And their profit after tax, or PAT, is shooting up at a rate of 29%.
They're really outperforming the market.
They are. So how are they doing it? What are their secrets?
One thing is their vertical integration.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, they have 28 facilities all over India in 7 different locations. This means they have tight control over their production process, so they can keep the quality high and the costs low.
Ah, so they're not relying on outsourcing as much.
Right, which gives them a big edge over competitors who do.
It's like they've got a really secure supply chain.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's their distribution network. They have over 205,000 retail outlets all across India.
Seriously?
Yeah, so their products are easy for people to find no matter where they are. That kind of reach is really hard to beat.
They're everywhere. And they haven't forgotten about innovation either, right?
Right, Polycab has a dedicated R&D center that's NABL ISO 18025 certified.
That sounds important, but what does it mean?
It means they're committed to quality and precision. It's a globally recognized standard for testing and calibration labs.
So they're not messing around.
Not at all. And they have a whole team of engineers and technicians, around 90 of them, working on developing new products and making existing ones even better.
They're always pushing the boundaries.
Always. But Polycab's ambitions go beyond wires and cables. Let's talk about their move into FM Ed.
Right, that seems like a really smart way to tap into India's booming consumer market.
Exactly. And what makes it even smarter is that it fits perfectly with their existing business. They can use their manufacturing expertise, their sources for raw materials, that amazing distribution network we talked about, and of course, their brand reputation, which is already strong with consumers. It's a classic example of expanding into related markets where you can use your existing strengths.
It's a win-win.
Absolutely.
And their FM egg portfolio is really diverse. They've got fans, lighting, switches, switch gears, water heaters, pipes, conduits, even solar products.
It's almost like they're building a whole electrical ecosystem.
I like that. A whole ecosystem. And that ecosystem is going to be a big factor in their growth. India's FMEG market is predicted to grow a lot in the coming years.
Yeah, there are several factors driving that growth. Rising incomes, more people moving to cities, and increasing adoption of energy-efficient products.
And Polycab is in a prime position to take advantage of all of that.
They are. Now let's look ahead. Polycab has this new 5-year plan called Project Spring, which is all about taking them to the next level.
Project Spring sounds interesting.
It is. It's built around 5 key pillars, each one focusing on a specific area for growth.
Okay, let's break those down. The first pillar is propelling B2C expansion.
Which is all about really becoming a major player in the consumer market.
Right. Developing innovative FMEG products, doing targeted marketing campaigns, and expanding their retail presence even further.
They want to be a household name.
Exactly. Then there's solidifying market leadership in B2B, which is about staying on top in the wires and cables market.
Right. They're moving to an industry-focused structure so they can tailor their products and services to specific sectors like energy, infrastructure, even things like defense.
Smart. It is.
And of course, there's growing ESG integration. This highlights their commitment to sustainability, the environment, social issues, and good governance.
This is becoming more and more important for companies.
It is. It's not just about ticking boxes anymore. It's about making sustainability part of everything they do. Absolutely. Sourcing raw materials responsibly, reducing their carbon footprint, ensuring fair labor practices throughout their supply chain, all of that.
It's not just good for the planet, it's good for business too.
Right. And it appeals to investors, customers, and employees.
Makes sense. The fourth pillar is ramping up international business, which shows they're looking beyond India.
Project UDAN in action.
Exactly. They're aiming to be a global force. And finally, there's nurturing talent and capabilities, which is all about investing in their people, building a culture of innovation, and developing strong leaders for the future.
Recognizing that their people are their biggest asset.
Absolutely. Now, let's take a peek at their financials. Polycab's latest statements show a company in really good shape. Their shareholder funds are over 81 billion rupees.
That's a strong indicator of financial stability.
It is. And their total assets are at a massive 120 billion rupees, which shows they're growing and expanding.
And they have good cash flow too, right?
Oh, yeah. Which means they can pay consistent dividends to their shareholders and still reinvest in future growth opportunities.
That's a great combination.
It is. But what I found really interesting was a detail in their financials. Their export revenue is growing. It's currently making up 6.6% of their total revenue in the first 9 months of this fiscal year.
So Project UDAN is working.
Seems like it. They're not just content with being #1 in India. They want to expand globally.
Ambitious.
Definitely. Now, their journey in the world of ESG is also worth talking about. It's clearly a big part of their brand and their overall strategy. They've gone from just including ESG info in their annual reports to publishing a whole separate integrated report.
That shows a much deeper commitment.
For sure. They're not just talking about ESG, they're actually doing things to make it happen. For example, they've achieved GRI limited assurance.
So their sustainability reporting meets global standards.
Exactly. That shows they're serious about being transparent and accountable when it comes to ESG.
Transparency is key.
It is. They've also done a complete greenhouse gas inventory, which is super important for understanding and managing their environmental impact.
They're taking all the right steps.
They are, and they've implemented the BRSR core.
Which is?
It's a framework for reporting on business responsibility and sustainability in India, and they've done it with reasonable assurance, which basically means they're committed to following the rules and doing things the right way.
So they're not cutting corners.
Nope. And their ESG strategy is based on 4 main pillars. The first is people sustainability, which puts their employees, communities, vendors, even customers at the center.
Creating a positive impact for everyone involved.
Exactly. Product innovation is the second pillar, which focuses on making products that contribute to a brighter, more sustainable future.
Energy-efficient solutions, eco-friendly materials, things like that.
Exactly. Then there's environmental sustainability, which is all about minimizing their environmental impact.
Reducing energy consumption, managing waste responsibly, switching to renewable energy sources.
It's about doing business in a way that doesn't harm the planet.
Exactly. And finally, there's robust governance, which is about making sure they're operating ethically and responsibly with strong policies and processes in place.
So things like anti-corruption measures, data privacy, making sure their board of directors is diverse and independent.
It's a comprehensive approach.
It is. They're covering all the bases. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have Polycab's journey, their growth strategy, their competitive advantages, their strong financials, and their commitment to ESG. They seem to be doing really well.
They are. They're firing on all cylinders. But let's stop here for a minute and take a breather.
Okay.
We'll dig into some of the specifics from the research in the next part of our deep dive. All right, so we've got a pretty good overview of Polycab, but I'm kind of curious to really get into some of the details we found in our research. Like, what really stood out to you?
You know, their list of projects, it's pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
They worked on some of India's biggest infrastructure projects, all kinds of different sectors.
It's like a highlight reel of India's growth story.
It is.
That just in the energy and power sector, they've supplied cables for the Haryana Vidyut Prasaran Nigam Limited project and a massive 221 megawatt solar project.
Wow.
And they were even involved in wiring the new Navi Mumbai airport.
That's huge.
I know. Think about the scale of those projects.
Yeah, it's massive.
And it goes way beyond that. They've got a big presence in commercial and urban development, too.
Oh, yeah.
Their cables are powering the iconic Lulu Mall in Calicut, the Central Vista Common Central Secretariat in Delhi, even the Surat Diamond Bourse.
The Surat Diamond Bourse.
Yeah, that's the world's largest diamond trading hub. They're everywhere.
They are.
It's amazing how they've become such a big part of India's development.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not just these big flashy projects either. They're involved in specialized projects like defense installations in Sikkim, mining operations in Karnataka. They even supplied cables for the construction of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, which is a project with huge cultural significance in India.
Absolutely.
Their involvement in so many different types of projects, I think it shows how adaptable they are and how much trust they've built in all these industries.
It really does.
They're not just following the latest fads, they're setting themselves up for future growth by being involved in all these key sectors. Speaking of strategic positioning, let's talk about their FMEG business.
Right.
They've really identified some key growth drivers in the Indian FMG market.
Absolutely. They're laser focused on meeting the changing demands of Indian consumers. For fans and appliances, they're highlighting the growing preference for energy-efficient options and products that offer more value and functionality.
Like those sleek, modern fans that are so popular right now.
Exactly. The market share for those premium and smart fans is expected to go from 20% in 2023 to 28% by 2027.
That's a big jump.
It is. And in the switches segment, they're capitalizing on the switch to modular switches and the demand for better safety and security features.
People want their homes to be smart and safe.
Right. And then there's the growing awareness about building automation and management, which plays right into Polycab's strength as a solutions provider.
They've got that covered.
They do.
And when it comes to lighting, LED is the clear winner.
It is.
The government's push for energy efficiency and just Consumers being more aware have led to a huge shift toward LED lighting, and Polycab is riding that wave with a whole range of LED products.
They're not just following the trends, they're shaping the market.
Exactly. They have a multi-pronged approach to driving growth in their FMEG business, focusing on innovation, brand building, and expanding their reach.
That's a smart strategy.
So let's break that down a little bit. What are some of the key things they're focusing on?
Well, premiumization is a big one. They're using product innovation and brand building to boost sales of higher margin premium products.
So like those fancy fans we talked about with all the bells and whistles.
Or switches with extra safety features.
Makes sense. It's not just about selling a lot of stuff, it's about making a profit.
Exactly. And they're also being smart about exploring new sales platforms like e-commerce and those modern trade stores. They're not just relying on traditional retail outlets.
They're reaching customers wherever they are.
Right. And to support this expansion, they've really stepped up their influencer management program.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they're working closely with electricians and contractors, offering them training programs, giving them incentives, even using digital analytics to understand what they need and what they prefer.
They're turning them into brand advocates.
Exactly.
Smart. But they haven't forgotten about, traditional marketing either.
No, they haven't.
They partnered with Ogilvy, which is a huge advertising agency, and they've increased their spending on both above the line and below the line advertising and sales promotions.
They're covering all the bases.
They are. And they're not just sticking to traditional brick and mortar stores when it comes to retail.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about those experimental stores they've launched.
Yeah, they've got this multi-format retail approach with their Polycab Galleria, Arena, and Shopee stores.
So those are different from their regular stores.
Totally. They're designed to really showcase the Polycab brand and give customers a much more immersive experience.
So it's not just about buying a product, it's about experiencing the whole brand.
Exactly.
I like that. Where are these stores located?
They've put them in key electrical market hubs across India, like Vadodara, Ludhiana, and Cochin. And they're planning on expanding to other major cities, too.
Smart. So what else is different about these stores?
Well, they're not just retail spaces. They also have audio-visual facilities, so they can offer training programs for electricians and retailers.
Oh, interesting.
They cover topics like safety, soft skills, even basic English and computer skills.
They're really investing in the people who sell and install their products.
Absolutely. And they're even using virtual reality to showcase their plants and facilities to B2B buyers.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a way to give them a virtual tour,
Yeah.
To highlight their manufacturing capabilities and build confidence in their quality.
It's like a glimpse behind the scenes.
It is.
But let's not forget what really drives their success, their manufacturing.
Right.
They have an incredible manufacturing footprint with 28 facilities strategically placed all over India.
That's how they keep up with demand in such a large and diverse market.
Their Halol and Daman facilities, for example, produce millions of kilometers of wires and cables every year.
Wow.
I know, right? And their Nashik facility is all about switches and switchgears, while Roorkee is where they make their fans.
They've got it all.
They do. They even have specialized facilities for pipes and conduits in Chennai and Bangalore, and a metal box manufacturing unit in Bangalore.
That's diversification.
It is. And remember how we talked about their backward integration?
Yeah.
Well, it's not just about controlling costs, it's also about ensuring quality. Their R&D center, the one that's NABL, ISO 12021-5 certified, is a big part of that.
Right.
And they have that team of around 90 engineers and technicians constantly working on innovation and quality control.
They're not just standing still.
Nope, they're always pushing forward. What are some of the innovative products that have come out of their R&D?
Well, they've developed things like their green wire, which uses special polymers to be more eco-friendly,
That's great.
and their BLDC fans, which are super energy efficient and really quiet. Those are getting more and more popular in India.
That's awesome. It's this commitment to innovation that really sets them apart.
I agree.
Now let's take a closer look at their financial performance. Their consolidated financial statements give us a really detailed picture of their financial health.
And it's a pretty good picture.
It is. Their shareholder funds have been growing steadily, and in fiscal year 2024, they reached over 90 billion rupees.
That's a sign of financial strength and stability.
For sure. And their total assets have gone over 120 billion rupees, which shows their continued growth.
Plus, they have healthy cash and bank balances, which gives them the flexibility to, pursue new opportunities and deal with any market ups and downs.
That's important.
It is. But what really stood out to me was their dividend payout history.
Oh, yeah.
They consistently share their profits with shareholders, which shows they're committed to creating long-term value.
It's a sign that they care about their investors.
Absolutely.
Their cash flow statement also shows some interesting things. They're making a lot of cash from their operations, which is what's funding their capital expenditure and those dividends we just talked about.
Right, and their capital expenditure has been going up in recent years,
Mm.
which means they're putting a lot of money into expanding their manufacturing capacity and upgrading their technology.
They're investing in the future.
Exactly.
It's a smart way to balance growth with rewarding shareholders.
It is. And their financial statements also tell us about their debt.
Oh, yeah. What's the situation there?
Well, they have a mix of long-term and short-term borrowings, but their debt-to-equity ratio is well within a manageable range.
So they're not taking on too much risk.
No, they're being financially responsible, which is important for long-term sustainability.
It is. Now let's talk about the people behind Polycab's success. Their leadership team is a really interesting mix of entrepreneurial spirit and professional expertise.
It's a winning combination.
It is. The chairman and managing director, Inder Jazangani, has been there from the beginning, leading Polycab from a small company to the market leader they are today.
He's been the driving force.
He has. And he's got a great team behind him, including Nikhil Jazangani, the whole-time director, and Gandharv Tonia, the executive director and CFO.
A strong leadership team.
They all bring a lot of experience to the table, and they have a shared vision for the company's future.
That's so important.
And their board of directors is really impressive, too. They've got people from banking and finance, experts from the energy industry, a really diverse group.
That diversity of thought is invaluable.
It is. It helps them make better decisions. And their management team, wow, they've got people who've worked at companies like Bajaj, CEAT, Havels, Tata Group, even Vedanta. They've got a wealth of experience.
They're bringing in best practices from all over.
Exactly. It's a really impressive team, and their vision and ability to get things done have been key to Polycab's success. But it's not just about business for Polycab. They've created a company that really values people.
That's great to hear.
Their commitment to social responsibility is clear in their ESG initiatives, but they're also taking specific steps to support their employees and the community.
Like what?
Well, their financial statements show they're investing in employee training and development programs so their people can keep learning and growing.
That's a good sign.
And they're actively involved in community development projects focusing on health, education, and rural development.
Oh, wow.
They've organized village-to-village OPD services.
What are those?
They're basically mobile clinics that bring healthcare to remote areas, which is so important. And they've been providing nutritional support to people with tuberculosis, which is still a big problem in India, and they've built Anganwadis.
Anganwadis.
They're childcare centers in rural areas which help improve early childhood education.
That's so important.
It is. It gives kids a better start in life. They've even set up vermicompost beds in villages to promote sustainable waste management and make the soil healthier.
That's really cool.
They're really walking the walk when it comes to social responsibility.
They are. Now, what about their shareholding pattern?
Right. Well, the promoter group has a majority stake in Polycab, which means they have a lot of control over the company's direction.
Makes sense.
But they also have a really diverse group of investors, including foreign institutional investors, domestic institutional investors, qualified institutional buyers, and alternative investment funds.
That's a good sign.
It is. It means a lot of different people believe in Polycab and their potential for growth.
And that confidence seems to be well placed.
It does. Since they went public 5 years ago, Polycab shares have done really well for investors.
They've outperformed the market.
They have. Their market capitalization has grown at a compound annual growth rate of 46%.
That's incredible.
It is. And they've given over 12.5 billion rupees in dividends to their shareholders, so they're sharing their success and rewarding the people who have invested in them.
It's a good story.
It is. So we've covered a lot of ground. Their projects, their growth drivers in the FMEG market, their manufacturing and R&D, their strong financials, their leadership, their commitment to social responsibility, their track record with shareholders. Polycab really seems to be doing everything right.
They do.
They've built a really solid foundation for growth. But, as we look ahead, the question is, how sustainable is this growth in the long term? The world is changing all the time, and there are always new challenges.
Good point.
That's a question we'll explore as we wrap up our deep dive into Polycab. That's the big question, right? We've seen how strong they are, their strategies, their commitment to growth. But things change.
The future's never guaranteed.
Right. There are always things you can't predict. So what do we do with all this information?
Well, that's where you come in.
What do you mean?
We've gone through it all, the data, the insights, the different pieces.
Yeah.
Now is your turn to analyze it all and think about the bigger picture.
Okay, I like that. So what kinds of things should our listeners be thinking about?
Well, what trends are you seeing in the global economy? How might those shifts impact India's growth? What about how consumer preferences are changing in the FMEG market? Those are all things that will impact Polycab's journey.
It's all connected.
It is.
And we can't forget about climate change, right? How will Polycab adapt to the need for sustainable and responsible business practices? Can they keep growing and still stick to their ESG commitments?
Tough questions.
They are. But thinking about these questions, really analyzing everything we've talked about, it helps you understand Polycab better and how the business world works today.
It's all about perspective.
Exactly. So use this deep dive as a starting point. Take the information we've uncovered and see what you think about Polycab's future.
Make your own conclusions.
So there you have it, a deep dive into Polycab, a company with a really cool story, a promising future, and some big questions still to be answered.
Lots to think about.
There is. We hope this has made you curious about Polycab and given you something to think about as you follow their journey.
Keep learning.
Keep asking questions, and like Polycab says,
Yeah.
keep connecting those ideas.